Hi everyone, we are live with the latest in the SEMRush series, Show Me the Links. Today we're going to have a webinar all about internal links. So I'm Julie Joyce, I own Linkfish Media, and I'll be your host today, and I'm joined with Andy Drinkwater, David Cohen, and Musa Hamani. So if we could just let you guys kind of start out. Andy, if you want to start, you could tell us who you are, where you work, how long you've been in the industry, anything else interesting.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So thanks, Julie. So I'm Andy Drinkwater. I have been in the industry now, getting on to my 18th year. So into my 18th year, nearly 19 now, and I'm primarily technical SEO, but love internal links. Hence the reason this one is one I've been particularly looking forward to. So yes, that's me in a nutshell.
And where are you based, Andy?
I'm actually based in the UK, over in Chester.
In Chester, okay.
Yes.
Couldn't remember. Okay, Musa?
Hey, so my name is Musa Hamani, and I work for an Arlington-based company. I'm a remote employee, so I live in Pakistan, but work for a US-based company, and I am in the industry for around 8 years, mostly worked on the link building side of things. So anything external or internal links, that's my thing. So that's the reason I'm here.
And where are you in Pakistan?
I'm from Karachi.
Karachi. Okay, that's what I was thinking. That's cool. And I understand it's very late for you. So again, thank you. Appreciate you staying up. David?
Hey everybody, David Cohen. I'm currently a marketing director at a software company. In terms of the industry, I've been at that level for about 10 years in a director role, really kind of focused on digital during that time, and really got into SEO probably 2009, 2010, definitely not a technical SEO, but I've focused on that marketing practice in terms of lead gen, demand generation, and more of a business approach. So when it comes to internal links, that's probably what I'll be focusing on here for the webinar and what I focus on for my work.
Okay, and you're in Philly, correct?
I am in Philly.
Okay. I'm in Greensboro, where it's about 100 degrees, so I'm in a bit of a nasty mood today. Anybody else have really hot weather? Andy, you know it's always great weather in the UK.
No, it's nice, but it's not hot enough.
It's miserable here. Well, I was going to ask, I was reading a few things about some potential updates over the past weekend and a lot of volatility in the rankings, but I haven't personally seen anything. Have you guys seen anything?
No, not particularly. I mean, it seems to have been pretty static.
Yeah.
I've not seen anything sort of one way or the other, to be perfectly honest with you, Julie. It's been sort of all quiet for everybody so far.
Yeah, same with me. I think it was on SEO Roundtable that I was just looking at it and people were talking about seeing a lot of rankings drop. But okay, I just wanted to ask you because I've seen nothing. That also brought me to another question about the SERPs in general, because the last few weeks when I've been doing discovery, I feel like everything in like the top 3 pages is kind of crap for me now. Are you guys seeing that? You think, I mean, I just feel like everything in Google right now, like I have to go to page 5 to find anything that I actually am looking for now. You seeing that at all?
Do you have an example? Like an example of what?
Not
what
one I can give out publicly.
Okay.
Well, just, you know, in general, like for one of our finance clients, one of my link builders had a specific question, and I don't even remember what that was. He said, you know, what do you see when you're looking at the SERPs? And so I go and do some digging, and really it's like everything I saw, even if it was relevant, was like, it might be a relevant article on a site that wasn't even, you know, like a really general kind of site. Just something I would say.
You know what? I can say I have an experience with that because I've been doing voice search over the past couple of weeks just to see what's happening, you know, what's coming up, what is Google doing. It's not something I'm personally doing with our company. Not a lot of our audience use it, but I wanted to see how it's working. And I've been tweeting a few things out last week, medical related, mental health, medical, people that need quick answers, you know, health related. And yeah, the results have been shit. And some people have commented on that. I think there's a dude, Dan Liebson, not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He's been looking at that as well on Twitter. So in that regard, yeah, with voice search, a lot of shit, tons of shit.
Okay. So not just me.
Not just you, Julie.
Okay, good. Thank you. I don't want to be alone here. All right, well, we will get rolling. We do have some really good questions, and we'll be taking questions from the live chat if we can. So just for everybody watching this, I want to clarify exactly what we mean by internal linking. Like, are we talking about linking internally on your site? Some people, when you say internal linking, may think linking into a site, like from another site. But for this, we're mainly discussing just linking internally within one site. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Andy, you don't have anything different to say on that, do you?
No, not particularly, no.
Trying
No.
to defer to the king of internal links here. Okay. I just want everybody to be clear on what we're talking about. Okay. So the first question I have, and Andy, if you want to start this, is how does PageRank flow through a site?
Well, top to bottom, side to side. It can be sort of hit from any direction, really. I mean, predominantly Google sort of says it's from your home page down is
Right.
the natural sort of flow for PageRank going to a website. But you can also make it flow the other way as well. So if you've got internal links coming into external links coming to internal pages, then you can actually use those, obviously, to push PageRank the other direction as well. So it can flow different ways.
Okay.
And for most of the sites, like let's say if you have a 5-page company website with a blog associated, right, and the blog is kind of famous, so most of the external links that you're getting, they're probably going to get to the blog pages, and then blog pages are going to flow towards the service pages or the home page. So I think it's the other way around. I think it pretty much depends upon what kind of website you have.
Okay. That's an interesting answer. David, do you have anything to add to that? Mr. Russian hacker.
No, I don't think I could say anything better, and really not my area of expertise. So
Right. Gotcha. Well, if you have anything and I don't ask you, just jump in. I know you have like
Yes,
totally
ma'am.
different skill set, which is one reason I'm so glad you're here. So somebody just asked on the chat, is there an upper limit to the number of times that you can link within a 2,000-word article?
Yes, I mean, you don't want to, but if you're doing it for sort of like internal link purposes, I mean, there is no limit. I mean, if you want to put 20 or 30 links on an article and sort of point them to different pages, that's fine, so long as they make sense. But if you're doing it for page sculpting purposes, then Google used to only look at the first link, but now they look at the second link as well. So your first 2 links are the predominant ones. Those are the ones you really want to be making something of.
Okay. But you wouldn't recommend like having 1,000 links in there or anything, would you?
No. I mean, I'd probably sort of limit it. I mean, on a 2,000-word article, I think you're probably pushing it at probably sort of 15, 20. You don't want too many on there because you don't want people sort of flying off everywhere. But the article is going to dictate. If the article dictates that you're going to be sort of sent off different places or external links, internal links, then it's whatever makes sense really for the article, I think. But I tend to sort of, on a long article, not to put too many in there.
Right.
It makes it more confusing. I mean, I like I like what Andy said. Like, as long as it makes sense. So right. Either 2 or 10, if it's making sense, be there.
Right.
That, like, if you're doing it purposely, I think that's not relevant to users. That's pretty much one going to be relevant to search engines later down the line.
Right. But there's like, you don't think there's any hard, fast rule on like, this is too many?
I don't think so.
I don't either. Okay. What happens when a site has a flat structure for navigation and basically is linking to every page from every page? How does this impact the site overall?
It's not going to be great. I mean, you don't want to be linking from every page to every page. That just it doesn't create a particularly sensible structure in terms of how you want a site to actually be used. And you still want to look at the architecture of the site. You still want to look at the structure. You still want a home page with that pushes you through the route that you want people to actually take. So you don't want necessarily to have people linking from pages from like the home page to like your internal pages, and then from your internal pages back to your home page all the time, because the signals get lost on Google. You want to limit how you're actually doing it. Try sort of always try and keep, and it doesn't matter if it's a flat structure or not, because you can still very easily create a flat structure with good internal links. that will do the same job as a site that's got any sort of categories or anything like that. So flat structure doesn't make an awful lot of difference.
Okay. And another good question in the chat: should you repeat, like your navigation? You have the head navigation. Should you repeat that in the footer?
Nope.
Nope.
I would say no.
Nope. Nope.
No, why not?
Basically, what you want to do, there's different ways you can actually approach this, because if we go back to like the basics really with sort of how a page is used, or how Google views a page. If you've got sort of like your home page with sort of like a 1,000 PageRank juice in there, and then the more links that are coming out from there, the less benefit that's going to go to all the others as well. So duplicating a footer as well doesn't do anything. I mean, again, if the site dictates, if it proves to be worthwhile for people that are actually on there, and hopefully you sort of do some testing either way anyway, then I would say that leave it on if it's worthwhile. But predominantly, I wouldn't ever sort of say like have a duplication on the bottom as well, because it just dilutes all the benefit that are on the pages themselves.
Even from the user standpoint, I did a test a few years back, and most of the, if you're repeating the links that are already available in the header, in the footer, the click rate will be much lesser. Instead, if you're adding like other links like privacy policy or return or exchange, or these kind of links that make more sense to the users, there'll be a click on it. But if you're repeating like home and the like top categories and stuff like that, again into the footer, it doesn't really make sense for the users as well. I don't think they're going to have a lot of good impact or positive impact from the SEO standpoint either.
Right.
Yeah, I would say another way to think about it, or way to say it, think about your real estate. You know, your top nav, it's your prime real estate, and then use the footer for things like your privacy policy and other things that aren't so relevant, maybe to the people that are coming to your site for whatever action you want them to take.
Okay, that's a good way to look at it. More of your boring stuff that isn't going to be like, critical for a lot of people using it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, should you no-follow links to your least interesting SEO pages? Or less interesting, I should say, sorry.
I can't think of a reason why you'd want to no-follow internal links particularly. I mean, you can use them again if you want to sort of get around to sort of saying, okay, well, I don't want to pass any sort of benefit to that particular page, but on the whole, you want Google to see all your pages anyway. You really want to be sort of no-following them. It's not. I think in extreme circumstances that you could possibly do it, but for the most part, I wouldn't really be doing that. So I try and make the pages more interesting.
I agree with Andy. I mean, if the page is less interesting, just remove the page from the website. Why no follow?
Right. Well, that kind of goes along with another question I had, because you see a lot of sites that have, like you might have a main hub page, but some of them may have like 4 or 5 kind of diluted hub pages that are all about the same thing. So should you link internally to all of those? Should, I mean, ideally, I would guess you might say merge them so you have one good authoritative page. But let's say they didn't want to do that and they have 4. I mean, how would you prioritize internal link building there?
I think I'd be starting to look at where the traffic's actually going on those pages. And if it was absolutely sort of set in stone that you didn't want to merge them, then I'd be looking at the traffic on those pages themselves and saying, right, okay, well, this particular industry is getting the lion's share of the traffic anyway, or this particular category is getting the lion's share of the traffic. So maybe push most of your links that way. But yeah, I mean, I would be hoping that somebody, if they've got something that's very similar, that they would be looking at some sort of merge with that as well.
Right.
I think one way I would look at that, every page has a purpose, or that's kind of how I look at it. So if we have a site, we have 10, 20, 30, 5,000 pages, each one should have a purpose, right? And I think whether it's a beginning destination, final destination, somewhere in between, we need to figure out the purpose of that page. And is it to move the audience or move the person somewhere else? And instead of giving them 3 or 4 different options or where to go, maybe it's better to give them one additional option to achieve whatever objective or goal you're trying to get for that page or the site in general.
Right. Very true.
And
Can I just chip in for a second very quickly? Sorry, guys. There was one in there, Julie, that's 20i has just asked a question about varying anchor texts on these as well. And with the anchor text, I just wanted to very sort of quickly add that yeah, absolutely, you should be varying these. It's not something you should just sort of use the same over and over again, because if you do that, it's going to look very spammy to Google. You will end up with the penalty for over optimization if that happens. So yeah, do sort of make sure that you've got a good number.
I think the rule is same for, like, you set up the anchor text for the external links, you have to set up the anchor text for the internal links as well. So it's like you try to make it as natural as possible for the external links. You should do that similar thing for the internal links as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you see that a lot of people don't really put that much effort into the internal links?
Yeah, I mean, you really want to be doing that. You really do. It's I mean, with the anchor text, I mean, you need to make sure that they make sense to the pages that they're pointing to. That's right. That's the whole idea about them. But if you've got an anchor text and you're just using the same one over and over again, you might think that the signal's a positive one that's going to be going over that way, but it's not. You want the variance in there as well. So you might want to use 4 or 5 different variants of that particular anchor text. You can still make sure that you've got your primary keywords in there as well, because obviously internal is very different to external. External, you don't want them to be overly descriptive to the page all the time. Internal, they absolutely have to be descriptive of the page. So you really want to be spending some time on your keyword research for what you want that page to rank for.
Right. And later in this, we have a few more questions about that for like accessibility. So I think that'll be cool to cover that too. And I know we just talked about the no follows. We said, there's no real reason, but this is a question. Should you no follow things like the contact us page? And I have a lot of people that I see that they no follow pages like that, like privacy pages, things like that. Do you recommend doing that? Is there any benefit to it really?
No.
Musa, do you want to go with that one?
Musa?
I mean, if you want to go ahead, that I personally think that, like contact us pages or privacy policy or stuff like that, there's no point of no following those pages, especially when you're internal linking from other pages to those kind of pages. I mean, you want people to be there, and these are the part of your website. So, I mean, again, the question is the same. Why do you want to no follow those particular links?
Right. You think it's just rooted in the
let me jump in. Hey, can I jump in on that one?
Yeah,
yes.
Sure.
Okay, so I submitted a question about no following links because I had a client a couple of years ago when I was at an agency, and they had a line of business where they were no following all the links from the pages related to that line to the main site. And I was like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Why the hell would you do this? Okay. And the answer was legal and compliance. So there was a legal and compliance issue for that particular line to no follow. And then we had to devise a pitch and a strategy to go to legal and compliance to get that attribute removed. But I think my question was, how common of an issue may that be for an SEO or an agency to deal with a site or a client? I don't really know.
I've never had that happen before. I mean, did they say, like, is there a reason that you can give why they had that policy?
They never really gave us a reason other than legal and compliance, right? Financial services, they were a home office within a bigger bank.
Right.
And that was it.
That's so weird. I've never seen that. Have you guys had anything like that?
No, never seen that one before.
I just don't know what the reason would be for legal to get involved. Okay, another question. How can we best use our inbound links to improve rankings and traffic for internal pages? Which is slightly off topic, but good question.
Well, when we were talking originally, as we started, about which way PageRank can flow or does predominantly flow, this is where it's beneficial. So if you've got deep links to your site, and then you want to use those, maybe articles or something like that, and use those to power your hub pages, that's absolutely what they're there for. So yeah, I mean, if you can actually get external links to your internal pages, there's a real benefit to doing that for you.
Right, definitely.
I agree. I totally, because it's like, when you're getting external links let's say if you have blog pages that are linking to the service pages or directly to service pages, because the external links have more value in terms, or or they have more power to bring in rankings as compared to the internal links. I think they're obviously more beneficial if you're getting a links directly to the internal pages, and then they flow the links towards the service pages or the home page.
Right.
Yeah, I think with the page and internal links, when you know you're building links to that page, take a moment and look what's there, before you begin that process of outreach and trying to build links to it. Can the links be moved further up in the page? Are they the right links? Can there be better anchor text? So that's kind of one way that I would approach an external outbound link building, program or project. Is to do a quick evaluation of that page and see if we can improve the internal linking or anchor text.
That's a very good point, because I have had a lot of problems with that with some clients where, they want us to build links to some really deep internal pages, and what they want us to do just doesn't match up properly. And with suggestions, they don't listen to me. So I'm a little bitter. All right. Again, I think we covered this some. How many internal links in general are too many? Is there like any kind of number? Talking about like for a whole site?
No, not particularly. I mean, it depends on the size of the site, really. I mean, if you've got a site that's got 1,000 pages, you're probably only going to want to have a couple of predominant ones for each page. But I wouldn't think there's a minimum or a maximum that you should or shouldn't use. Again, right. the site will dictate to a certain degree, but again, don't go overusing them, really.
Right. Yeah, part of that question. Oh, go ahead, Musa. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It says some people report seeing an increase in organic traffic after they have reduced some internal links, especially from the footer. I've seen that happen.
I've seen that happen because and this is one of the issues that lots of sites face as well, is when you've got lots of links in the footer, and even your contact, your privacy policy, your terms and conditions, anything like that, everything that you've got down there takes away some more power from that particular page. So if you can actually reduce those or condense them, or make all of those particular links just go through to one page, make it just like one click or something like that, and then have your links on from that particular page. Anything you can do to actually benefit will actually benefit that. So if you can reduce that, then yes, you will notice benefits.
Okay.
I was in Moscon, and there was a guy who was speaking about the case study for Wayfair and how they removed their footer links, and that increased their organic rankings. So I think the kind of explanation it was again the same thing. The important links that are important for the users, let's say like privacy policy or exchange returns or these kind of things, these kind of links they're pretty fine when you're put it in the footer. But if you're adding the like exact match anchor text keywords pointing to that particular page because that page is going to rank better and they're going to get us more traffic, I think a better idea is to reduce the links in the footer that are making more sense to the users. Are all going to benefit you instead of putting a lot of links into that.
Yeah, I still see that, like with, I think, real estate sites. Lots of times I see the crazy where they have all the cities and all that, and there's like 1,000 of them in a footer.
I mean, I would say if you really want to target like multiple cities, make one page where you're putting up all the cities like a sitemap kind of thing, and then put that one link in the footer. Maybe that makes more sense.
Yes. Okay, a question from chat. Can too many internal links to a page confuse like how Google reads that page?
Yes.
Yes.
And this is why you've got to be a little bit careful about how you do it. If you don't want to be firing too many internal links to a page with a wide variation of anchor texts.
Right.
If you've got too many and it's too narrow, then it will start to look spammy. You need to try and keep it a little bit real.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
I think I would ask myself, well, why are we pointing so many internal links to that page?
Right.
What's the reason for that? Are we trying to mitigate a problem? Are we trying to create an opportunity? Are we overthinking it? So I'd probably take a step back and think like, what the hell are we doing here? Why are we prioritizing that page with so many internal links? Are there other ways we can improve that page's rank, traffic, and conversions?
Right. I think it's very important to answer the question why. Like if you're putting that link to that particular page again and again, is there any particular reason? If you have a solid reason, then go for it. If not, then you should stay away from it.
Right. And, I think because of a lot of people like us who may have worked on sites years ago and thought things like that were a good idea. Sometimes you kind of run into that where it's been like completely crazily over optimized. So I feel like in some ways SEOs can be to blame for that too.
Yeah.
What are some things to consider when you're building internal links? Like we talked about anchor text. Do you guys look at anything? I mean, user intent, call to action. Do you guys look at any kind of metrics when you're doing that, when you're mapping something out?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you need to. There's a number of tools you can use, and obviously, sort of, SEMRush has got a very nice internal linking tool at the moment as well, which gives you some good idea as to how well a link to page is. But there's loads of tools that you can use for this. I mean, Screaming Frog, Ahrefs, Sitebulb. These are all ones that you would use. But don't forget Search Console as well. And Search Console will show you which your most linked to pages. If you've got a page that's maybe getting more prominence than it should be, then hop into Search Console and have a look at seeing how that's actually being linked.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I would probably pick up the pages with the I'm gonna go to Ahrefs and we're gonna figure out what are the internal links that have the most external links pointing to it, and then make adjustments to the internal link from there accordingly, because that will gonna make more sense from the SEO standpoint.
Right. Okay. So a question from chat: should you have multiple links to one internal page from the same page? Like if you had an article that was linking internally, should you have more than one link to another page there? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, there's no harm in doing that. I mean, you can. There's nothing to say that you can't use one page to then have two internal links.
Right.
Going to that one page, there's no harm in doing that and making use of it. But again, no, not really.
Yeah.
No real benefit. There's just no real downside to it either.
Well, that's good.
Why not if it's making sense?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, somebody might jump to a section, and not read like the 3 paragraphs above. So I guess if it makes sense, that could be good.
Yeah, like if you had a page where you had a study, you have a bunch of data, maybe an infographic or a video, more of a wholesome. Then if you have maybe a blog post or another page that alludes to that, you might have 2 or 3 links, that you've got link behind anchor text around data, because people love to click numbers, percentages, research. And, that might be a scenario where you would have a couple links to the same page.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good example. That does make sense. Here's a question about a multi-language website. In terms of interlinking, is it worth it for the user and SEO to internally link on a multi-language website? That was a question that was submitted, and maybe one of you understands that better than me.
If I think what that means, then yeah, I mean, there's no harm with doing that at all. Like, I mean, you're going to have. It depends how it's been done as well. If you've got a translation happening on the fly, pretty much. If it's like being done through WordPress, for example, and it's just sort of translating it, then it's going to carry over internal links with it as well. If there's fresh pages for it, then yeah, absolutely, you'll want to sort of internal link those. But you probably wouldn't want to go from a German page to an English page or vice versa, unless there was a reason for it to do that. I suspect you'd probably get more from just keeping it within that particular language itself.
I agree with that, because I mean, I don't see any, unless you have a solid reason to move from linking from English to German or German to English. I mean, I would prefer not doing that, because that, or if let's say if an English user is on the website, click on that link, move to the German version of the website, that he doesn't understand, the result will be the user going to bounce from the website, and that's not something what you want. So I prefer not doing that.
Right. Yeah, I think it would irritate me. So here's something, and I've kind of reworded this. Should every page on your site have a link to another internal page? And let's say, I mean, maybe you're going to link back to the home page, but should it also have another link to another internal page?
Well, there's going to be some point where, I mean, if you've not got a link to a page, then it's not going to get found. It's just going to be orphaned. So there should be links somewhere to every page on the site. Some people will prefer to keep the primary menus, like the top menu, to a minimum, and maybe just have like a top level, and then let the internal links flow that way, or let people sort of navigate from within those pages. Other sites will create navigation based on a particular set of pages that you're on. So you go from your home page to a category page, and then your menu changes. So you see a different set of pages there as well. So yeah, you would want to make sure though that something is linked from every page somewhere. There needs to be something to sort of make your pages get found.
Right.
Yeah, something I've been kind of experimenting with lately. When I have a form submit page, like a thank you, somebody completes a form, then they go to a thank you page. I've been putting in an internal link on that page to like a webinar archive or a showcase archive. So once that person completes the action, maybe they requested a demo of our software, maybe they requested somebody to call them, whatever the different actions are, putting an internal link and another call to action to keep them on the site and go to where I want them to go next, as a way to kind of learn more about us or prep for their demo call. And that's been working really well for us lately.
That's a very good idea. I don't see a lot. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to have an orphan page. Like, you have to have an internal link. I like that. It's a really good idea that you keep the user journey in mind, and then move from step by step, from one step to another, Even for an e-commerce website, once the purchase is done, that could be a link to an ebook, or a link to the webinar, or a link to a purchase, or something like that. That totally makes sense.
Yeah, I like that idea, and I don't see it that often. Like, it's just like, thanks, you'll get this, or thank you, we'll get back to you, but you don't. I mean, it would be fascinating if you ordered, say, a dishwasher, and then it gave you a link to how to install the dishwasher. I mean, there's so much you could do that would keep people all over the site.
Especially on an e-commerce website, once the person has bought something from you, the trust level is super high, that if you're going to give them a link to the ebook or a link to the newsletter, stuff like that, they're probably going to go ahead and subscribe, or perform the next action.
There. Yeah. Cool. All right, we had mentioned some tools, and so now we have a few questions about that. Basically, if each of you want to answer this, like, what are some of the tools you use when you're looking at internal links and mapping them?
Well, first and foremost, sorry, Moose, go on.
I mean, the two tools that directly come into my mind are Ahrefs and Screaming Frog.
Right.
Those are my favorite.
Yeah, the other one that I use as well is I do use Sitebulb, because the one of the things I really like about that is the fact it gives you a visual mapping of a site as well. So you can see how the site is already sort of laid out. You know from before you even start, like I say, whether or not you're going into something that's going to get messy, or something that's maybe got a nice structure already in place as well. Ahrefs have their internal, they're very useful tool actually, which is the pages which is like best by strength basically. So you can sort of see which are the strongest pages. Something that's not really a tool, but I do use a lot of is Google as well. So I'll do a site colon for the site itself, and then put at the end of it the search string, and that will show you the most, well, in fact, the strongest pages that Google sees for that particular phrase. So that's also another one. But then Search Console as well is another one on top of that, as well as SEMRush as well.
Right. And David, I don't know if you do a lot of that. So in terms of crawling, do you have a favorite tool for that?
Screaming Frog. I think they do a beautiful job, of pulling in a very simple report, especially for people like me. And I know a lot of people are loving Sitebulb. I've not used it for that, so can't really speak to it. But yeah, Screaming Frog will always get the job done.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I haven't found one that, I'm disappointed in. I do really like Sitebulb too, because it makes, I like the visuals. It just makes more sense to me.
I haven't used Sitebulb personally, but that's a good recommendation.
Oh, you haven't tried it yet?
No, I never.
Oh, you should all try it. They're really good. So when you're, let's say when you're doing internal, checking on the links and everything, what are some of the most common issues that you find are wrong in terms of internal links on a site? Like pages not found.
Yeah, broken, we chose a dumb page to link to,
Does it say that?
Like, wow, what the hell were we thinking here? Like, why are we trying to send people to that page when they can't fucking do anything, right? So yeah, like cleaning up past mistakes, really. I think it's like writing, the more you write, the better you get.
Right.
The more you go through this, the more you do it, the better you get. So I think it's always good to kind of go back a couple of months and look at, what you were linking to, why you were linking to it, what your anchor text is, and how that aligns with whatever goal and objectives you may have for the page or the site.
Right.
Especially for the small businesses, if you go and look at their blog and how their blog is internally linking to their commercial pages or the homepage, they're using a lot of exact match anchor text, and that's frustrating sometimes. Like you have 200 blog posts all linking to the homepage using the keyword, and that's not even the brand name, using the keyword, let's say ABC in Dallas or ABC in Houston, and those all 200 blog posts are linking back to the homepage. That doesn't make sense, but they might be desperate about rankings and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, agree with everything there.
Nothing more to add, Andy?
No, not particularly. I mean, those are pretty well covered off there.
Yeah, I agree. Another question from chat says, is it bad to still link to older pages that are not in the navigation? I'm assuming they're not 404. Yeah, they're still there.
No, if there's a page that's still there, then link to it.
Link to it.
I mean, if it's an old page, say it's like an old blog post, I mean, maybe think about repurposing it, bring it up to date, update the content, republish it, get it back into Google again, and see if you can do something more with it as well. But there's no harm in using older sort of pages that are there as well.
Okay. Have any of you ever seen anybody get a penalty for doing too much internal linking?
Yes.
Really? Really?
Yes, I have indeed. Yeah, I actually did a talk in Cambridge a few months ago about this, and one of the slides on there was a new customer I'd sort of taken on board, and they actually had a penalty because, I mean, their site was in such a mess. It really was. I mean, it should have never had more than about 200 pages. They ended up with over 30,000, and multiple pages doing the same job or trying to do the same job, internal links flying left, right, and center. And yeah, they saw a hefty over-optimization penalty from Google for that one.
Okay. I never personally seen that.
I've never seen that either. I would have said I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah, it's yeah. If you go and have a look, I'll link it later on, like I say. But the deck that I used there actually shows the image of the site, and I actually sort of used Sitebulb to map the site out, and it was interesting.
So did they get a manual action?
It wasn't manual. No,
okay.
It wasn't manual. It was an algorithmic thing, and I say it seemed to happen over time. The more the work they did, trying to fix it, the further it was just going downwards all the time.
Wow. Well, I'll have to keep that in mind. It's kind of scary. How many times should you use the same keywords internally?
That's another good one. This is where you've got to like get your spreadsheet out and say, right, okay, well, these are my primary keywords. If you've got a certain number of pages, say for example, you've got 20 internal pages that you can use, and you want to use those pages to sort of link to 3 or 4 of your other internal pages, going to be your hub pages, then you want to make notes of which are going to be your primary keywords. The primary keyword should always get the lion's share, but to keep it natural, you should always then split up some of your alternative keywords as well. So you talk about sort of LSI keywords and the likes as well. So you want to make sure that you've got something that makes sense. You don't want to use the same one over and over again. You might want to use 4 or 5 variations across the board for those.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I would say, how many times do you need to repeat yourself?
Yeah.
not everybody likes things repeated, right? Can get a little annoying. So back to, to Andy's point about natural, if you need to repeat yourself, do it, but perhaps you don't. So kind of think about it that way in terms of communicating with a person.
Right.
Yeah,
It could be a
I-
sign. Yeah. You're just not doing other things right, I guess, if you have to do it like that.
Yeah.
So another question from chat, and maybe you have an example of that. What do you think about obfuscating internal links that only make sense to the user, not really for Google?
Yeah, and this is where you should mix it up. I mean, you need to have something on the page that makes sense. I wouldn't necessarily say avoid or make sure you're doing one or the other. You need to make sure that it's natural as possible. So there is no harm in sort of making sure that you've got the right number of links, internal links on a page. But what is the right number? I say nobody really knows. I say it's what again the page dictates really.
Right. Anyone else have anything for that? So another question, whenever you create a new page, at a minimum, which pages should you link to it from? Like the home page, sitemap? Is that enough to, I mean, obviously every new page you create is not going to be linked off the home page. But
yeah, it's going to, over time it will be, yeah.
Right.
So it's going to naturally sort of gain its own links anyway,
right.
through either the menu or through like an internal link as well. Like I say, you wouldn't want to be left with orphan pages. So if it's something that's just a part of a flat structure, maybe a WordPress site, then hopefully it will sort of be part and parcel of the structure anyway.
Right.
But you definitely want to make sure it's got at least a link so that Google can find it.
Right.
You can use the sitemap, obviously, like I said, that makes sure that Google can find it, but you don't want to have orphan pages in your sitemap. You want to also make sure that it's got a link from a particular page anyway. You could also, you're going to get some sort of a benefit from using crumb trail breadcrumbs anyway. So hopefully you'd naturally get a link to a page.
Right.
I mean, the only thing I'm gonna add is, like, let's say if you're making some like specific pages, let's say you're adding a new service page, so maybe that is something that you intentionally should be linking to the homepage because that makes sense for the users. But other than that, keep it natural.
Right. That seems to be like our, it's what we're saying for everything, keep it natural, which makes sense, but
yeah.
Sorry, David. Oh, David, I'm sorry. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was going to kind of go back to the purpose. We're launching a new page. What's the purpose? Who's it for? What's the objective? If it's a conversion page, obviously you're going to want to link it to a page that's maybe getting traffic from search, and you can move them to that page. Maybe you're testing a new page. Maybe it's a free download that then you want to send somebody to take a conversion. So again, go back to the purpose thing, the goal, the objective. And then link accordingly.
Right. It makes perfect sense to me. Mm-hmm. Somebody asked a pretty neat question, I think. Is internal link optimization white hat? Because, I mean, a lot of people just think about links and they think about black hat and paid links or all kinds of other things like that. I don't know that you can really say anything internally, white hat, black hat, but I don't feel like
it's definitely a white hat thing if you're going to stick a hat on it, because Google actually says internal link to your pages to let us know what they're about, and that's actually in Google's webmaster guidelines. The other thing that internal linking will do as well is it will also help your when you search for your brand, you've got your site links. Hopefully, you've got your site links underneath your brand name as well. Your internal links also dictate which of your site links are going to show up there as well. So if you've got your contact page on your site links, it's of no real use. You don't necessarily want them to go straight to your contact page. Then you need to reduce the reliance on the number of links going to your contact page, the number of internal links. There's different ways you can actually do that, and Google does actually state that in the webmaster guidelines. So definitely a good thing to do.
I think the primary rule is to, like, whenever you're creating a website, you're creating a website for your target audience. And by using the internal links from one page to another page, you're actually helping user to navigate the site. And when you're doing it for the users, it's definitely white hat. doesn't make sense
Right.
unless you're spamming or trying to get rankings by like dodging Google or stuff like that. In that case, maybe that's black hat, but for the most part, it's white hat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, as a tactic, is it white hat, is it black hat? No, it's logical, right?
Exactly.
Right. Very true. So do you guys advise using breadcrumbs on internal navigation, for internal navigation?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It helps on multiple levels. I mean, it's a very easy way to get backwards and forwards between the pages, and there are benefits to doing this as well for the pages. So
Right.
I
yeah,
agree.
definitely.
Right.
Yeah, I would say why not?
Why not? How can you make sure you're not over optimizing keywords for internal linking within a site? We've touched on this before, but I mean, is there a good way to make sure you're not doing it?
You need to map it out. You really do. You do need to make like a spreadsheet and like make sure that you're not overusing them. If you're starting off from scratch, then head into Search Console and then look at the pages that are linked the most internally and what anchors are being used for them. That's a good way to sort of start. But yeah, you need to be a little cautious on how you do it.
Right.
Yeah, I would kind of look at it like drinking. You know, have you had too much to drink? Are you good? Right?
You can never have too much to drink.
I can have too much to drink. But the point being, it's like you have too much to drink, shit gets sloppy, right? So you don't want to have a sloppy looking page. So I would kind of look at it that way, like, is enough here? And how's that performing?
I think it's important that, like, again, from the user standpoint, your target audience, you always need to make sure whenever you're pushing the publish button, you need to make sure that whenever the target audience is going to land on that particular page, are they going to serve the purpose? And if the answer is yes, then that's not sloppy, or you can easily go with that. And yeah, I agree with Andy. Mapping is very important. Once you're going to have like a detail on 300, 400, or 500,000 pages website, you need to map it correctly, or else you're going to flow somewhere.
It's going to be a mess.
Yep.
Okay, here is a question. I know I said we wanted to touch on some accessibility. So I just, in case we run out of time, I wanted to go with this a little bit. Do you think that people are downplaying the importance of accessibility, let's say for people with like visual impairments? So, you might see sites sometimes where their internal links, you can't even tell it's a link, or the link is the same color as the surrounding text. So different, people with different visual issues may not be able to see it. So how can, we need to be making sure that people with different types of, visual impairments especially are able to navigate sites. Are you seeing sites that are hard to navigate like that? Because I do see a lot of them where, you just have to mouse over something to figure out that it's a link.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think if you were to just for the very basics, just go back to how a hyperlink should look is a good one.
Right.
So stick an underline under it. There's no need to sort of try and get fancy with sort of effects as you hover over it or anything like that. I mean, if you start off with something that's a different color with no line, with no underline, then it gives you an idea. But if you just keep it the same color as the text, and you do still see a lot of that as well. It doesn't help, obviously. It doesn't help matters in the slightest, and really doesn't help anybody with any sort of visual impairments.
Right, and I know screen readers, if they're going to read out what anchor text is, it obviously needs to make sense.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
Who's going to click on it if they have no idea what it is? And I think that idea in general is something we may need to think about when we're doing everything.
Okay.
Let's see here. So, when considering anchors for internal links, what else should you do on the target page to ensure that everything is as properly optimized and relevant as possible?
Best practice. That's all you need to do, really. I mean, it's all about best practice. I mean, if you've got a page that you want to use as a primary hub page, then make sure your page title's all right. Make sure your description's spot on. Make sure your content's on point as well. Make sure the page is quick enough. Make sure the site's quick enough as well. Because obviously, like say, if you're on a mobile, then, and obviously we've got mobile first to sort of take into consideration as well. Nobody wants a slow site. So you will lose traffic that way as well.
I think there are a number of items. You make a checklist, and whenever you want to, whenever that question comes to your mind, just go through the checklist. So most of the things are right. Just go with that.
Right. What would you put on your checklist? I mean, like, let's say 3 things.
I would say, like, the title tag or the content of the page, and it is making sense with the title or the targeted keyword that you're trying to target, or the plus one more important thing when you're putting in the content is, let's say if it's a blog post or it's a question, answer of a question. So it should, answer the question. Let's say if you are creating a blog post that says, cost of a garage door repair. So it should talk about the cost. It shouldn't be a fluffy thing like, maybe this and maybe that. It should be exact number. I mean, even if you see the rich snippets that you see these days, if you ask for the cost of that particular thing or cost of this or cost of that, the rich snippet comes up with the exact number in terms of dollars. So, I mean, that's not exactly the number that you're going to get. Maybe there are some variations of it, but I prefer including the particular number instead of just vague answers like the cost could go down and up or this or that, instead of coming up with a number that maybe the lowest value is $35 and the highest value is $3,500, stuff like that. Maybe somewhere in between, these kind of things.
Okay.
You should answer the question instead of just putting in the fluff with it.
Right. Somebody asked a question that I want to answer this before we end, and we have about 10 minutes, but I think it's a great question. Is what would be your top 5 internal link tips? Ooh. Just in general.
Top 5, right? So, I mean, for me, first and foremost, is do your research. I say your research is a big one to start you off, because there's no point in going into it sort of half-cocked and maybe you're not aware of how a page is already linked. So I'd do your research first and foremost. After that, I'd do my keyword research. So first of all, your site research, then do your keyword research, because the keyword research, if you get that wrong, and you end up over-optimizing based on the incorrect use of a particular phrase, then you will end up with it's like a penalty or a slap off Google of some sort. Right. So those are probably two of the biggies that I'd use.
I think I don't know that I could come up with 5 right away, but one that I immediately thought of is beware of escape hatches. And when I think about a link, an internal link, an escape hatch, is that an avenue or a way for people to leave the site without taking the action you want them to? Versus moving them through that journey. So again, take a step back. Audience, why are they coming here? Where are they coming from? And where do we want to move them to? And make sure we don't have an escape hatch, a link that lets them not finish that journey or would mislead them to a different part of the site where they don't get what they want and you don't get what you want.
And there are like technical stuff over there, like you have to have you have to do your keyword research, you have to map the internal links before implementing everything. But I think what it basically serves is that whenever somebody is on the website and they're planning to click on that particular link, they should continue their journey instead of get frustrated. So whenever you're putting up internal link, you make sure that you're guiding people towards more knowledge about the subject instead of just getting the SEO value out of it. So SEO is right, but you have to take care of the users first.
Right. And I think what I would say as a tip would be to go along with that and what we discussed about people that have different visual impairments especially. And I guess that's important to me specifically because I have a very good friend who is blind. And I went to the agency that he runs and watched some users totally blind, some with just visual difficulties, go through my own website. And it was just amazing to me, the stuff the screen reader would read. And I realized how maybe somebody might not be able to actually properly use a site. And I think sometimes with SEO, we just kind of forget that there are people like that. Yeah, so I think that's very important to make sure, your descriptive anchor text is there. It looks like a link, things like that. Okay, I think we got 5 there. We're going to do your research, your keyword research, beware of escape hatches, think about the journey where you want everybody to go, and accessibility. So I think we did pretty good. Okay, I'll move on a little bit. We've got about 7 minutes to go. A few good questions left. Does overoptimization of internal anchors work well, even if it's not the best idea?
No. if you go over it too far, then it will. I mean, I've seen this firsthand. I say it will cause problems, and this is where I said you need to make sure that your structure is right. You need to make sure that your structure is right on your site, but you need to make sure that you might. And I'll go back to mapping again with the actual anchor text for the keywords themselves, because if you get that wrong, then you are going to end up with too many of the same thing pointing to the pages, and Google's going to look at that and they're going to know what you're trying to do. So you need to make sure that you keep it a bit natural. I mean, I go with a structure. So if I've got a structure that I'm working with, and I'm trying to do the internal keywords for it and looking at the actual keywords, then I will say, okay, well, I've got this particular phrase, and then I will find 4 or 5 variants of it. The primary one, I will give it sort of 40% or 30% of the prominence for there, and then I'll reduce the percentages as I go through to make sure that every one of them gets used at least once or twice, depending again on how many pages I'm actually using it on, or how many opportunities I've got. But you don't want to sort of just throw everything at it in one go.
Right. Okay, here's a question about priorities, which is kind of long, but I think it's a very good question. So if you're thinking about, your internal links and your priorities on fixing them and making everything better, how would you prioritize a project? Like fixing broken internal links, would obviously be important, but what would you think about, like, checking the anchor text, rewriting it maybe? How would you kind of set up a priority for how to fix what's wrong?
I'd again sort of look straight forward to the research, and I'd sort of say, right, okay, well, look in Search Console. That's the first place I always go, and look at which are the most internally linked pages, and see if there's any opportunities to basically reduce the prominence on one particular page over another. And it might even be that you can do that and sort of make some good changes without even having to go into a full-scale project of any sort. So research the site first and foremost.
Okay.
I mean, from the technical standpoint, if there's a website, well, the first thing I'm gonna do is every time I'm gonna run the audit on Screaming for anything. One thing that I don't want is the 404 pages on the website. I don't want people to go to a page where they don't find the website, or they don't find the information. So I think the first thing I can do is to reduce to 404 pages to none, and then move. Even if the page is not available anymore or stuff like that, I'm going to set up the redirections to the relevant pages, stuff like, and map it accordingly. But instead of the 404, I have a strict rule: no 404s on the page. That's it.
That's a good rule. David, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would kind of look at what pages are losing compared to those that are winning in terms of goal and objective. So I know I'm like super repetitive here about goal and objective, but I really feel like every page on a site has a goal and objective.
Right.
And if you can look at the ones that are performing well against those, and maybe there's 3 or 4 different conversion actions which meet that objective, and the ones that are losing, and in the idea of focusing on internal links, maybe you can find something with those winning pages, and you can make the adjustments and then prioritize that project in all the other various projects that any SEO may have at any given time, especially if you have a client. Because when I was at an agency, I would have people on my team that would pitch their client on internal linking and fixing anchor text. And if the client isn't really sophisticated, they don't get the value, they don't know it, that can be a difficult sell. And it can also be difficult for that person to know, is this really the right time for it? Do we really need it? Is it going to move us to where we want to be? And think about it that way in terms of prioritizing it.
Right. And that made me think of another question. What would you advise saying to a client, to stress the importance of internal links? Because I have had some issues with that where they just don't really think it's that important. So does anybody have any
point them to Google?
Just Google.
Yeah, point them to Google, and then sort of show them that, yes, this is what Google recommends for a couple of different benefits.
Right.
But I mean, if you're doing it and you've got some sort of stats that you can show from sort of previous clients as well, then that would help. Otherwise, it's just down to your ability to be able to sort of show them that yes, there are real reasons why you want to be doing this.
Right.
Maybe research the competitors who are ranking well for the keywords that clients ideally want to rank for, and if their internal structure is fine, you can recommend that the competitors are doing that. Which is one of the reasons why you should be doing that too. It's more convenient from the client standpoint that if the competitor is doing that, they probably would easily invest on that particular area.
Right. That's a very good point.
Yeah, my answer is money. Money. Right?
What do you mean by that?
How are we performing, revenue-wise?
Right.
Do we have an e-com site, sales, or do we have a lead gen site, right? That can turn into sales opportunities, and really, think about it in that way. You can get any business owner, any executive on board with an idea, or at least listening to you if you focus on the money part, where they're losing and where they can make more.
Right. I think I need to talk to you before I try this with another client, David. Maybe you can give me some advice. Well, we have time for another question. And I know we had talked about footer links, but in case anybody's joined us who didn't hear that earlier, our site's still using footer links for internal linking. And is that a good or bad idea?
Using what links? Sorry, Julie.
I'm sorry, footer links. Footer.
Oh, sorry, footer links. Sorry, I thought you said Twitter links. I'd probably say, look, try and do away with too many footer links. I mean, they're not really beneficial to sort of people on this. I mean, if anybody's at the bottom of your page, then I say hopefully they've sort of got to where they need to be. But make sure your call to actions are there before your footer links as well. But I'd try and do away with too many footer links.
Okay.
I'd say my advice would be to go whenever you are adding a link to the footer, think about users. Do not think about SEO or search engines. I mean, if it's relevant for users, go for it. If not, then avoid that.
Right. Okay. Well, if nobody has anything else, it is 1 o'clock, so we're kind of done here. And you guys did a great job. We got through tons of questions, and I'm very proud, very happy about that. And I also want to say thank you again to everybody. I know that everybody's doing this for free, and you guys put a lot of time into it to answer questions, help me come up with ideas. So I sincerely appreciate all of that. And if anybody has any questions, I know all these guys would be happy to answer them. You can reach out to me, you can reach out to any of them, and there will be a recap of this. So if you just got in, the last 10 minutes, you'll be able to see the whole thing live soon. So I appreciate everybody joining us and hope we'll see you again in a month. Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.